Hi, I'm Beck from Beck Baker Instructional Design. In this video, I'll show you how you can create simple calculators in Storyline using variables and triggers. This is a great way of getting learners to experiment with numbers directly inside the course, staying focused and actually trying out equations rather than just reading about it or reaching for their phone to be able to do those calculations and getting distracted. I'll touch a little bit about JavaScript for formatting numbers, but I'll give you all the coding for that and just make sure that our focus order is accessible for everyone. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get learning. So this is going to be my basic slide. I'm not making it look massively pretty. You would want explanations and titles and all that sort of thing, but just so we've got less on the screen, I've made it nice and simple. So this is just for your information at the beginning, because obviously there's big gaps and we need to create stuff. So this calculator is going to have our first number here, an operator that we're going to let the learner choose, second number, and then an equals sign and the final answer at the end. And we've got a reset button just to reset all the variables and states of the objects. So the first thing is our buttons. So for each of these I have actually changed the colour, but to support anyone with colour deficiencies, I've just written the word selected underneath as well. So I've done that for each of those. So they will just say selected. You don't need to have that text, that's completely up to you, and the size of the buttons and all that sort of thing. Just make sure that they are accessible for your users. And the equals and the reset button just have a normal and a down state. So something's happening when we click on it, but we're just having them reset to the normal state afterwards. Okay, so if I just played this at the moment, we would be able to see that currently we can select all of the operators. So I can select the first one, but I can also select all of the other ones. And you only want it that the learner can select one of them. So it's a really simple fix. We just highlight all of them. Right click, make sure that you've got the cross when you're clicking. So right click on it and go to button set. It's best not to choose the default one because it can get a bit confusing. So the best thing is just click on new set, and we can call this operator button set, and click add. So now when we preview this, we will only be able to select one at a time. So now it will just go between whichever one we have selected. So that is stage one of the calculator, our basic setup and a button set for each of these. So now we've sorted our buttons, we need to create our actual number entries for our first and second number. So to do that, we go to Insert, over to Input and down to our number entry field, and then click and drag, and I am just going to change the background a little so that you can see it more clearly, and I can just line that up, and I'm going to format the text so it's in the middle and a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm just going to delete that, and I am then just going to copy and paste it so that I have the two here. Always rename everything in your timeline. So I'm just going to call this number 1 entry, and this one number 2 entry. And then we also need to change the names of our triggers. They will always default to numeric entry with no number and then 1, 2, 3, etc. as you go along. So we need to alter that. All this trigger is doing, so this will default, and all it's saying is when we type in here, that's what the variable will be. So we type in here, when we move away from it, the variable will have changed to whatever we have typed. So that's all these are saying. So let's rename them. We just want to go up to the variable, and I'm going to just call
the first one number 1 and the second one number 2. Try not to make anything too complicated. You can't have spaces in variables, so I'm just hitting the space bar, it won't work. So if you wanted a gap, you could do an underscore. Some people, and a lot of coding would then say it was another word I wanted, would start the next word with a capital, like that for example. But I'm just using simple numbers here. So now you can see it's changed to number 1 and number 2, and this just makes it a little bit easier to manage for going forward and anyone else reviewing this later. So the next thing we need to do is type in our answer.
To display what the answer will be, we need to create another variable that will then be shown here using a text box. So these ones are entry ones, but this is just a number on its own once we've done the calculation. So if you go over to the variables and click on the plus and type in answer, change it to a number, and we'll leave the default value as 0. Click OK and OK on here, and that has created our variable. So now we need to insert it. So we can go insert. We need a text box this time. Now sometimes you can type insert reference, but we can't do that until we've created a text box first, or we're selected in somewhere else. So we'll create our text box here. And then we want to go back over to insert and click on our reference and choose the one we want, like that. You can also do percentage, the name percentage instead, which does exactly the same thing. But if you can't remember the name, or you want to make sure that you've got all the spellings correct and capital letters in the right place, it's easier just to go over to the reference and select it in there. And then you can do all the same as before. We can just add that text box around it, and we can change it so it's a better size, and maybe make it bold for the answer. So this is up to you how you want to actually format these. I'm just doing it a bit more so that you can see. So these ones are blank because that's what we're going to type in, but this is actually giving us our answer. Now we need to set a variable for the operators, so we know which, when we press equals, which of these is actually going to work. To actually do our calculation, we need to add one more variable, and then we need to create some triggers so that we are selecting which of these we are using before we do our calculation. So it may seem a little illogical, this next step, but it will make sense as we go. It's easier just to show you. So the first thing we need is a variable for this, for these operators. So we're going to click on the variables tab, and we're going to go to new. We're going to call this one operator, and we're actually going to leave it as a text box. It will make sense soon, and leave the default value as blank. Click OK. And then what we want is to change the variable when we click on one of these. So we go over to triggers, and we want to go just variable, and we want our operator. And in the blank you could write words, but I am just going to do the same symbols here. So a plus when the user clicks on our add button, so this one here, and click OK. And then we just need to repeat that. So you can copy and paste it, or just go to new and just variable operator, change this to a minus when the user clicks on subtract. And I'll just show you the copying and pasting. So we can copy, paste, so you can change it in here. So change it to a multiply when we click on multiply, or you can copy paste and then bring up your triggers panel again if you find that easier. So divide when the user clicks divide. So we've now got change the operator to a plus when we click add, divide sign when we click divide, multiplication sign when we click multiply, and finally a minus sign when we click subtract. Now this is all working, but it can be hard to know whether it is or not. So when you're doing your calculation, you might not be getting the answer. And is it because of this, or somewhere else? So
it's easier to write out the variable for our operator. So we're just going to go insert a text box. Just click it again. Ooh. And just drag, and I want to call this operator equals, and then you can either do the percentage signs, or we can again go back to our insert reference and click on operator like that. So now when we actually display it, we'll be able to see what that's doing. Now when you've finished your calculator, you want to delete this, but when we are testing, it makes it so much easier. So now when I click on a plus, we have a plus, minus, minus, multiplication and divide. So of course you could have these say full words if you find that easier, but it's more to type later, so that's why I do that. So we'll click close on there, and the next part we need to do is the actual sum. Now we've got our operator sorted, we've got all our entry boxes, we need to actually create the calculation. So how Storyline works is you can't just say if this happens add this to this, or if that happens divide this number by this number. You first of all need to set the answer to be equal to the first number, and then you would do the operators afterwards. So our very first trigger that we need to do is we need to, I'll just move that over there, adjust variable answer and set answer to, instead of a value, a variable, and pick number 1 when the user clicks the equals button. Okay, so we can't sort of do all of it in one go, we have to do it in stages. So the first one is we're saying set this number to be this number when we click equals. So let's try that out. I always think it's good to test as you go and make sure that each step is working rather than jumping to the end and wondering where the issues are. So we'll type in 12, hit the equals, and this turns to 12. And no matter what we change this to, when we hit equals, it will be the same number. So that is our first step. The next step is to then work with the operator. So this time we are going to click, and we want to adjust the same variable. We want to adjust answer, and instead of set, we want to go add variable number 2 to answer. So remember, answer is our number 1 over there, and we are adding to number 2 when the user clicks equals again. This time, if our operator is equal to plus. So remember, this is what we set up here for our operator, and we click OK. So now let's test that. And we can type in both boxes this time. So we want to go 12, add a number, I'll just do 12 again, equals 24. So that has worked this time. And then we are just repeating that again for each of the other steps. So I'm going to copy it and bring it up again. I think this is definitely easier. This time we want to subtract number 2 from the answer when the user clicks the equals button, if this time the operator is minus. Click OK, and then copy again. Let's open that up. So this time we want to multiply the answer by number 2 when the user clicks equals, if the operator equals our multiply. So remember, whatever you decided to choose for these is what we want to make sure we copy exactly. And then the final one, let's open that up. So this time we are dividing the answer by number 2 when the user clicks equals, if the operator this time equals our divide sign, and click OK. So these are all the ones. So first of all, we're setting this first number to be our answer, and then we are doing these different things, either add, subtract, multiply, divide, depending on what our operator is set at. So let's try that out.
So we will do some simple maths. So we can go 10 add 10 equals 20. Let's do take away 5. So we've got 10 take away 5 equals that. Let's just do that for multiply. So 10 times by 5 equals 50. And then 10 divided by 5 equals 2. So at the moment we can just go through each of these. We can leave the numbers as they are and we can just click and go, oh, yep, 10 add 5 is 15, and you can click through them. Or we can have it that when we click on our reset button, it will just reset all of these each time. So we'll do that next.
So for our reset button, we want to be able to reset the 3 variables we have here and the operator. And we need to reset the state of all of these buttons. So we can just do the variables first. So adjust variable, answer to 0 when the user clicks the reset button. And then just repeat that for the other ones. So this time number to 0 when we click reset. Number 2, reset, and finally the operator when we click reset. So these all go under the reset one. So we are resetting the answer, so this one here to 0, number 1 to 0, and number 2 to 0, and the operator to blank. So this would just empty. Now remember, we'll be deleting this, but it's worth just checking that all of those work to start off with. So that's our first ones. We'll just test that. Again, I like to test everything as I go along. And then it's easier to see where I've made a mistake. So we'll just type some numbers in here, click the equals, and then when I hit reset, it's going to reset this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, so that's blank, 0, 0, 0. Now it's not reset these because that's what we need to do next. So now we are going to change the state of our add to normal, so we don't want it selected when the user clicks the reset button. And we're just going to copy and paste that. So we'll just go through each of those. Reset button. So we've done add, divide, multiply, and finally subtract to normal when we press the reset button. So it's a few different ones now. If we just go to them to reset these, if we'd done instead of setting the operator, if we'd just gone when we press this, this happens. We'd have to have variables for each of these instead to make our maths work. So then we would have to reset all of those. So having our operator reduces the amount when we reset. So let's just try that out. So we will type 1 in here, times by 2 equals, and then when we press the reset button this time, everything is reset. So it just gives the user the opportunity to start fresh. The only thing that you'll find is, unfortunately, when you reset numbers, you can't get away with not having a 0. It won't go to blank. The only way you'd be able to do that is by text, but then you would have to have even more variables to convert things, so it's more complicated. So you can just click in here and hit the delete key and then type in what you want. The same with, obviously you don't need to do the last one. Yeah, that's the only thing. When you press reset, it'll go to 0 each time. I mean, you could just type in the number after it and it will ignore the 0. But you can get around that with some JavaScript, but we're not going to go through that today. So that is our basic calculator. I'm next just going to cover a little bit of JavaScript if you want to tidy things up a bit. In Storyline, any numeric values will default to 2 decimal places. So it doesn't matter what your maths is going on here, it will always display only 2 decimal places. And there isn't anywhere in Storyline to be able to change that. So you need to do it using JavaScript. But I'm going to give you the code and you'll be able to just copy and paste that into your own work. So to do this, we actually need a text variable to display our answer rather than what we have here. So I will create it and then demonstrate. So I'm going to just click on New Variable, select a new variable, and we'll call this Answer Display. And we want it as a blank text box to start off with. So we just click OK on there, click OK, and then insert our text box like we did for the operator. So text box, and I'm just going to go final answer equals, and then go to insert again, reference, and we want that answer display. Okay, so obviously this would be replacing this number here. We don't want to have it as a decimal place and a whole number or other decimal places, but this is just for demonstration purposes at the moment. So you need to make sure that you have a variable that's text variable answer display, or whatever you want to call it. And then we need to execute our JavaScript. So we do that in triggers. So we want to go down to execute JavaScript, and then where it says JavaScript red, we click in there. And this is going to be to convert it into a whole number. So if you've never used JavaScript before, just so you know, the 2 forward slashes is just information. So this isn't part of the code. The actual code is in the darker text, not the yellow text. Okay, so this is just for you to understand what's going on. So the first section here, so this bit here is get access to the Storyline player. The next section is we want this number, so what we put as our final answer that is in this box here. So whatever you've called your final one, hopefully you've named it the same, is answer. So if you haven't called these the same, this is where you'd need to change it. So you need whatever you've put here, whatever you've put in this bit to equal the same, whatever you've called it. And then the next bit is the rounding up. So this section here is saying take a number and turn it into a whole number. And then to do that properly, we need to format it in a text variable. So that's why we have our answer display. So if you were altering any of the names of your variables, it's this answer here and answer display that would need to change. And we click OK on that when we're done. And that's when we select the equals and press OK. What you want is you want it so that the JavaScript is triggering after all of the calculations. You don't want it before, or it will potentially only give you this first number and round that up. So let's just demonstrate that. So as a reminder, this number here is going to be to 2 decimal places, and this will be to a whole number. Okay, so I will do 10 divided by 3, and that should be 3.3 recurring, but we've got our 2 decimal places there. But then we've shown our final answer with whole numbers is just 3. Okay, so that is how you can, I'm just going to space that out a little bit, make this bold, just so it stands out a bit more. Okay, so you would be replacing this box here with this instead if you wanted just whole numbers the whole time. And then I'm just going to show you how you could change it to be different decimal places. So say that we wanted instead it to be to 3 decimal places. I'm going to just copy and paste this. So the only bit that's changed from before is this section here. So we're still getting our player, we're still working with the answer that we had set here, but this time we are rounding the text to 3 decimal places. So it's the number we had before to a certain number of decimal places. And again, we're going to display it on the answer display and click add. So it's just changed this. So this now will be 2 decimal places still. This will be 3. So we'll just show that working. So we'll do our 10 divided by 3 equals, so we've got our 3.33 and here we have 3.333. So 3 decimal places and 2 there. So the only thing you would need to change if you only wanted it to be 1 decimal place, so you just change here to be 1, or you might want it 10 decimal places or whatever you want. So sometimes for particular maths that you are doing, you want them to get the whole number that they're creating. Okay, so I hope that was useful to go just over a little bit of JavaScript, and try not to be too scared by it. It's just a different way of being able to manipulate the information, and that's what's great about Storyline, because we can basically do whatever we want to stuff. So if it's not quite behaving as we want, we can use JavaScript to be able to do that. One final thing I wanted to mention was keyboard focus. So I'm just going to delete for now what we don't actually need. So we've got our answer here. We don't need this text information that we've got, and we don't need this operator anymore. So we've just got what the learner would see. So to see what focus order we have, we just go up to this focus order button here. And what it's doing is it's saying what order of things will be read out on a screen reader, and also anything that we can interact with, what order that will be in. And at the moment, so you can click on it to see where it is and it'll highlight it. We can see we have our number entry 1, and then it's going to number entry 2, then to our answer, and then all of our add, subtract, multiply, divide, and our equals, and finally our reset button. So it does normally try and do this in it will be going from top to bottom, and I don't know if you can see, but these text boxes are actually a little bit higher up than these. So it's actually thinking that this one and this one and this one will come first because they're higher up on the page. But we don't want to have to reformat everything to work properly, so we can just change that ourselves. So we can go to create custom order instead. And then you can either click and drag things where you want. So actually we want number 1 at the top. So I can click and drag number 2. So I want that after our add, subtract, divide and multiply. And then we want the answer. And instead of, sometimes when you drag, especially if you're dragging upwards, it doesn't always work. It is now, just to prove me wrong, but it doesn't always work. So you can just use the arrows here. So now we have it. So we've got entry 1, add, subtract, multiply, divide, entry number 2, our equals, answer box, and finally our reset. So it's always good to have alternative text for anyone using screen readers, because it might not be very clear what this is for unless you've got everything labelled. So we can just say type your first number, and then type your second number, and finally, this one we'd actually leave it, so this is displaying what the answer is from here. So anything that is in quotations is what it would read out if you hadn't put anything here. But you can see that I've put select to add, subtract, divide, etc. So it makes a bit more sense. But this one, we just want it to display that answer. Okay, so now when we save, and we'll just view it, we'll then be able to use our keyboards to tab through those different interactions. So I just hit the tab key. So that's my first one. I can type in our number. We can then go to one of these. So let's go to our divide, just hit enter. Type in our second number, so we'll have 2, and then we will tab to equals, and that gives us our final one. And if we want to reset, we tab again. You'll notice it didn't go to the 5 here, but that's because it's set to focus mode, which will only go to something that the learner can actually interact with. So then we can go to our reset, press our enter key, and that resets everything. And then to go back, they would have to press shift tab to go through back to the beginning of those. Okay, so it's something that is really important, and probably something that is ignored a little bit is how does someone operate with a keyboard. But yeah, it's all in our focus order, and it doesn't always make logical sense with the default. So do make sure that you check that and go through it. So I hope that was really useful for you, going through how to make a basic calculator, and then you'd be able to either simplify this. Maybe you just want a simple addition and subtraction. You might be wanting to demonstrate maybe a conversion, or something that they can type something in and press a button and it gives them their maths that you can do over here. And I'll just show you something a bit more complex. So this was an example I did for working out your BMR. So this is quite a long equation, and the fact that it's different for men and women as well. So you've got one calculation here, and it's quite a long one that someone's having to do. And instead of just saying, here's your equations, there you go, even if you said, get your calculators out, how many of us are then going to, check Facebook and LinkedIn or whatever and, start messing about and forget that we were actually doing something. So if you give them the calculator, it'll make a lot more sense for them. So we could just select in here, we can type in a weight. I'm totally making this up at the moment. So it's in kilograms and centimetres, say that 30, and then we hit the submit button and it gives them their BMR. And then they would be able to, we can't preview it. I do have another screen as well that then takes that calculation. So this is quite a bit more complicated, but it's all done using the same principles of triggers and variables. So I hope that was useful, and don't forget to check out the comments for the JavaScript. Thank you.